Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Series 5. We're getting there slowly, folks, of Line of
Yeah,
Duty.
it's the series 5, it's the first episode of series 5 review, so a bit of housekeeping before we start as always. So Dark is in the Darren, and Ology and Dave travels through time, and I suppose I better give a shout out because he's sadly not in the chat because he's up top's been a kid, but Matthew's up top has been not pretty recent. So Amy, you may not be here, and if you're and if you're catching up with the reviewer after the fact, Matthew Bill of Ian are grateful for the support, but if you guys haven't already smacked the push out the out the like and subscribe and share button. Feel free to do so right now. So to kick things off, Charlotte, what are your initial thoughts on this episode? And by the way, in case you do get any new viewers, this is the point here, Charlotte, actually joined the show, believe it or not. So, Charlotte, have you get any attachment to this episode in particular? What's your initial thoughts for this episode?
I think there wasn't really an emotional attachment so much because this wasn't the beginning, and even watching it, I can remember it was good enough that you could pick it up and you didn't need to know all the backstory because once again we've got a refresh, which is what they do at the beginning of every series. But I can remember just after first watching this being so impressed. That's what I can remember. And I think watching it again fresh, because it's been ages since I did my proper binge, when I did have to catch myself up again for the first time, it's not gone less. It still impresses me because this episode, I think if you were to do like a masterclass on action and character and story and how you can interweave all those things and how everything feels like it stays just the right amount of time, nothing feels wasted, there's no real scenes, hi TARDIS, that really drag on. Like everything has got this pace about it. And like I said, but they still have what, and I think I said this in our roundtable, you sort of here, you still have it, that thing of they still have the little character moments. And I really love the character stuff in this episode. For the Steve stuff we'll get to, for the Hastings stuff, I think those two are the stands out for that. But this episode is just a masterclass. Like that's, I know it's an overused term, but this episode is that.
And you can kind of tell that the acting has also stepped up here as well, I think, and that's not a and that's not a so and that's not a so that's not a so on any of the previous cast members, but you can kind of tell that you can kind of tell that the main three the main three cast Birds have fully hit their stride and they've upped it, and they've upped it as well, but also as well, you get a really well known actor and Stephen and Stephen who also starred in this is Kill, and if you haven't actually checked out that movie, chat, I would advise you to do so because it's one of because it's one of Stephen Graham's earlier projects, and he was also in another offshore Imo or whatever it was called not too long ago, a couple of years ago that I'm still to check out, but I'm a fan. I'm basically a fan of his, and I'm basically a fan of his work. In case you haven't already in case you haven't already noticed, but he is an exceptional actor, and he's always at the forefront of the book. His odds for the next Doctor is well. His name frequently he pops up, but in terms of my initial thoughts before we go into greater detail, I mean style, this series is a lot as as a lot different and a lot more together. Yeah, because as you'll see as we talk through the viewing walk for you start to see you start to see the activities of the OCG and how they operate as an organization. So again, it's something completely different, but at some point the series going to come up, and I think that this was a perfect series to address to address that, because the show has been setting up to this point. I think series five is the perfect time to start this, and you begin to see how the organization operates a bit better.
Yeah, because before they've sort of been on the
Mhm.
like the edge of all the stories, haven't they? They've been there, but as like this
Yeah.
far away presence. Whereas because of the setup of the sort of what the investigation is this series,
Yeah.
they are more center, and you actually get to know them. Yeah, that's a massive difference. They're not just these sort of thugs. Even Tommy in series one, who we knew a little bit about, he
Yeah.
was still quite. You didn't know a lot. You just knew enough that he was a bad guy. Whereas here, there's a lot more on show, and it's a more complex.
Yeah. And you get a turning character, the salon manager from the first.
Two returning characters.
Oh yeah.
And I'd be very surprised if you didn't click who the second one was, but we'll get to that later.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And he. Although
Oh, One of your favourite characters from like series 1.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens up and we sort of get the sort of, like I said, there's some familiar things. It's sort of action heavy scene, but I think this is probably one of the best ones they've done up to this point because of how it's staged and the way it's shot and the way it's written.
Yeah, who directed this episode? Because it was very well directed all the way through, but this scene in particular was
Oh,
exceptional.
I think I did click the name when I was watching, but now it's escaping me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the one we know from Doctor Who. It wasn't Douglas.
No,
I can't think of the surname now. It's not him
yeah,
because I know that name anyway. So I always click when he directs one of these. It was somebody else. I can't quite remember though.
yeah, but
So
it's a fantastic kill he directed scene.
yeah, so we start with a delivery. We don't know what it is. We just know it must be important because it's got a
Yeah.
police armed escort, and it's very, you can tell, sort of big operations going on, and they're sort of pulling out of the depot or whatever it is. You meet
Yeah,
the female officer who sort of becomes important near the end of the scene.
yeah,
And they're setting off to drive, and it looks normal as usual until they get to a certain point and they come across a car that looks like it's crashed. There's flames and there's a screaming, hysterical woman screaming about her baby.
yeah.
And I think also that a lot of props has to go for the actress. And the name's escaping me, which is terrible.
Yeah,
But she does a
because
really good job in this episode as well.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure I've seen her in some film before, but like I can't, it's not kill. I can't remember I can't remember for the life of me her name. So, like, if she ever comes across this episode, of you
Folks,
guys,
I'll for next review, I'll make sure I write her name down because she's really good. So she's
yes,
screaming,
yeah,
and then the female officer sort of goes, "No, we are going to help." So she stops the whole convoy. They go to like investigate the car, and as soon as they look in the car, they find it's a doll, and that's when major danger senses should be going off.
yeah.
And I think I saw Wendy's comment that she was shouting at the TV. It's very much that sort of telly that you are just shouting, like, "Don't do it, don't do it." And then as soon as the female officer clicks, it's a doll. She panics, and then lo and behold, it's an ambush, and all her other officers get shot and killed, and she sort of gets shot, but it's not fatal. She's sort of on the floor, isn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, Sudoku, maybe.
I said that kills YouTube account being taken over by Matthew because that's something you about.
Well, Sudoku, you're our stand-in then. So the female officer's on the floor,
yeah,
and the woman who then turns around and you click, oh, she's part of this, who was screaming before,
yeah,
basically has the chance to shoot her, to kill her like all the other officers.
yeah,
And she hesitates, and she just leaves her, making out that, oh, she's a goner, she's not going to survive. And then the rest of the crew take whatever's in the vehicle at this point, the van, and drive it off.
yeah. But yeah, just before we go any further as well, yeah, as well as we go further through the episode, you begin to see, you begin to see that she's a Phil stout and character as well, and I see Sean's put a related comment, and which me which has made me chuckle. Um, home. Oh, Sean, keep up the good of the channel over there, and I've enjoyed the two as the videos that you and the lads have put out. So if you haven't already subscribed to the whole what the fuck have you been doing? I've been I've been saying for about 5 years over here and subscribe to the channel, but on you go. Oh, Charlotte, I've kind of deviated again.
Folks, I'm used to this, aren't I? I'm the one who keeps the streams going. This is what we all know. And Wendy said she thinks she's found the actress's name, and I have to try and pronounce it now. Roshanda Sandow. I don't know, Wendy. Like I said, I'm going to Google this myself because she does a really good job, and I feel terrible not to know the name to hand.
Yeah.
So that's sort of our setup, isn't it? This van, this takeover.
Yeah.
And the fact that she hesitated does come up pretty much in the next scene. And then this is when AC-12 get a whiff of something not being right, because how on earth did they know the gang to hit this target? It was very secure. It was very hush-hush.
Yeah.
So they're already starting to think, aren't they? Is there a mole? Is there some information that's got out when it shouldn't have?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Matthew. You are here.
All right, on you come. I mean, you come Terry with demo on it, but at the timing's impeccable. After yeah, but
Yeah, so Kate and Steve go to interview, and also there's a tiny little thing, actually I didn't write my notes, but Kate is now higher ranking than Steve, so you even see that dynamic in play before the interview.
She is a detective. She has now been promoted to detective inspector, and I think that was kind of on so that Hastings can sort of keep the allegations of sexism under the carpet, because I remember the whole Britain series 4 and Oz has a in restaurant. I think that might have scared Ed and changing his mind as to who to give the promotion. I'm curious to find out your thoughts on that, Charlotte.
I think it's definitely a factor. Like it was basically something that was used to attack him previously, so he would think, right, I'll rectify that, I'll fix it. But also Kate did prove her worth. It's not like she didn't earn the promotion. So it's sort of a bit of both, I would argue. But what I like about the little interactions is you're seeing now the sort of tension that Kate and Steve had last series about this promotion. They're now having fun with it. They're now sort of, when Steve sort of says "mom" to her, he sort of says it in a bit of a teasing way, in a bit of like, there's no venom in it. It's nice, good fun. So it's nice to see that evolved from last series, and that it is sort of changing them a bit, but in a very more sort of nice way, that they're almost a bit closer. You get the vibe.
Yeah.
But they go and interview the surviving officer, and basically they're like to her, why on earth did you stop? And she talks about the car and the baby, and they quickly make a link when she mentions, oh, I'm a mother, so I wouldn't want my child to be left. And they're very quick to go, yeah, but do you not think that's a really big coincidence? That you're the only female on this squad, and you're a mother, and you were placed on this op. So they're already starting, aren't they, to sort of try and work out what's going on and what's going wrong. So the idea of them, and then she says, well, I've not told anybody, but the woman did save me. And this is when they first get sort of told, when they first get told about Lisa, but we don't know her as that yet. We just sort of, we know there's something weird with her. We don't quite know what. And then we get our first proper sort of scene with John and her, and when we first start to see their dynamic. And what did you think of that, Daniel? That sort of scene when we first got introduced to John properly?
It's kind like this point, you are kind of like sort of trying to figure out John as a character, because he's a bit like a Rubik's Rubik's very sort of complex, and I know it's a shit. And I know it's a shit and I'll but just go home with it. But like John and Lisa's and our actions ending if you for action throughout the episode. And it's really and it was a really interesting dynamic to have Luca Arik also have such a for access relationship throughout the whole episode, and I think usually it kind of takes characters a couple of scenes scenes to have a access or tension between
Yeah, and I would argue like sort of that's what's, I agree with you, that's what's interesting, but it's also this sort of vibe of he's definitely the one in charge. He's definitely the superior to her, and he acts like that. He acts like he can command her and tell her what to do.
It's
and
almost it's almost like the big man on campus. Look at me, I can push you around, sort of thing, and you're not going to do a thing about it. It's that sort of vibe.
Yeah, and we've had characters like that before. We've had a few like high-ranking police officers like that. But what's interesting with John, it's that sort of take, but with a lot more darkness, with a lot more sort of danger and nastiness, because he just comes across as a horrible piece of work throughout the whole episode. And you start to see it here with sort of when she does say, "Oh, I need to tell you that I'd let her go." You can just see how mad he is. And how like, God, what mess have you got us in? Sort of look. So we go back to AC-12, and they know about this woman. Like they don't know anything else about her. They link it to a past robbery where a woman said she was gonna have a baby or something. I can't quite remember what the cover story was, but it's another woman and child cover story. at a robbery.
Yeah.
But they go to get the file and they can't access it. It's basically restricted.
Yeah. So they have to go out on the so they have to go out on other sort of head what us to try and gain access to the files.
Yeah, and this is when we meet Alison Powell,
Mm-hmm.
who's sort of the DCI. I didn't quite catch her rank. She's basically the one in charge.
I think she's he's another superintendent from another force, but she's been called into the joint forces.
Yeah, and sort of just from the get-go, they're a bit stumped. Also, because Hastings is there when
Yeah.
he's already there waiting for them almost. And then she starts to basically say, I can't tell you anything really, but there's a sensitive undercover op going on.
Yeah.
And they basically say, well, your officer has allowed three other officers to be shot and killed. You need to pull them out. And she's like, yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And you get this vibe, don't you, from like the first scene she's in, that something's not right with her, to put it lightly. Like, she just has this like shiftiness, doesn't she, about her?
Yeah.
And then so Kate, they're outside of the place, and Kate and Steve are thinking at this point, well, it must be the female that saved the other female officer. Hi, Melina.
Hello, Mel. Sorry, carry on, Charlotte. I was just welcoming Mel to the stream.
Yeah, of course. So, and like I said, there's so much fast moving. You're very quickly going from storyline to storyline, and now you see more of John's gang meeting with this other criminal group that originally bought, we found out, drugs that were in the van.
Yeah.
And it's a proper sort of negotiation, isn't it, that's going on in this scene?
Although he kind of strikes me, he is the type he would kind of see out on the anarchy. He's
It's a bit,
yeah.
it's a bit biker-like, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're basically negotiating how much of a cut and how much pay. And once again, John is being very alpha male. He's sort of telling him what the deal's going to be. And also, they pass a few comments about Lisa. Basically, like, oh, is she like your partner? Like, she your girlfriend? There's a few derogatory sort of comments, which will come into play later. I think why they've been said in this scene, sort of to do with her. Oh yes, he's very sleazy, Sudeku.
Yeah, he is.
So now we go back to Kate and Steve, and they're thinking, right, who was aware, who had the knowledge to be this leak, to tell this gang that this was going to happen, this drop. And they're looking through officers that would have that access, who have disciplinary records. And this is how we come across Vihan. I'm probably saying that name wrong as well.
Yeah, Ihan. So the end of him, and I kind of got the impression it was kind of all interesting of you. The reason why I am suggesting I am suggesting as like the April wasn't actually being used to, or it was kind of more like more sort of agile type of all train of the
Well, they didn't have any evidence. They couldn't really get him on anything.
mhm,
But also because we have got another female officer who's part of AC-12, and she flags before this to Steve that this fella's name came up before, and I shown it, and I did pass it on to PC Binder.
yeah,
So, folks, you're going to see my horrible name pronunciation this week.
yeah.
And then
It's
Steve sort
okay,
of
I'm
looks,
just as bad at it.
and Steve sort of looks at her and is like, "Okay, why was this not passed along?" And that's going to become very relevant soon.
It's because and it's just like everything family really in a show and cracked up is what they're supposed to be in a sim show.
They're never happy, folks. So yeah, he's starting to get interviewed, and he's very nervous, isn't he? Like you said, so you sort of know he's got something to say.
Yeah.
And they ask him a few very soft questions, and he's starting to sort of get nervous. And then he goes, "Oh, I just want to get some water," which I think now, if I was a police officer and I heard that, I would just be instantly suspicious, because they always dart and run when they're about to say that.
Matthew. If you did it as to get some on and him streaming that was bloody brilliant. That made me chuckle a few thanks for that.
Yeah, so he runs out, and like, as you can guess, he doesn't get far. But what's more important, I would say, is how Steve reacts to having to tackle him on the floor.
Yeah.
And I saw Sudoku make a comment about how he's not in the chair. And you're seeing in this moment, he's not in the chair, but he's still got quite bad issues with his back, because he can see the pain
Yeah.
for him just to do a simple tackle on the floor.
And any day if I should so like somebody like myself can actually relate, and it's never going to truly yeah, as soon as you injure your back, you're basically screwed almost.
Sudoku, from my memory, and I'm gonna have to track back, I think he did like really bad pelvis injury, and that is something from my very basic knowledge is if you like you shatter your pelvis or you do any sort of break of your pelvis,
Yeah.
even if you fix yourself, you still got massive issues. And I think I could be wrong. I think that's what happened with Steve. It was a bit more than a slip disc.
On, but you can see it's a diversal effect. And because they can't even do a straight down to come down.
Yeah, and that's because that's what I love about Steve's development from last series into this. It's all sort of a bit of a snowball, and you're starting to see it even this early on, and you see it even later on with a scene which I'll get to. So now this is a proper interview because he's legged it, so they can arrest him and get him in.
Yeah.
And they search his home, and they find a load of banknotes, like used banknotes.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as that's revealed, he sort of knows, and they know, right? What? Why did you give them the info? It's pretty obvious at this point. He did tell them about the van and the drop. And he sort of
Yeah.
was very quick to say, I didn't know it was going to get violent. I didn't know anybody was going to get killed.
Yeah.
But they just basically blackmailed me and said, if you don't give us the information we want, we'll let your family know what you got yourself into.
Yeah.
And he also talks about a woman. So once again, this woman's popped up again, that he thought it was a betting firm or something to do with betting, and that was
Yeah.
sort of the cover. And they purposely go after people with debt so they can use them.
Yeah.
And he's got, you learn later on as well, he's got a bad history with betting
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah. Gambling addiction.
So you're starting to see a little bit now of maybe how this gang operates, but you're still sort of in the dark, aren't you?
Yeah.
And there another interesting scene with John and Lisa is he basically says to her, I think you're a weak link. I think you're going to bottle it.
Yeah.
And he's quite intimidating in that scene,
Yeah.
Graham. He's really sort of in a face about it.
Yeah.
And like Sudoku said, oh no, but not. I was going to do with her though, and to do with the acting. You can see she's nervous, can't you?
Yeah.
She's not quite the hard woman she tries to portray.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think she puts on a front because any intimidation from John or from somebody else, you can see that you can see that sort of ask shot or some
Yeah,
easel.
and the shakes and the nervousness you see in little moments up to this.
Yeah.
So you can see why John's telling her this, and obviously because she let the female officer go, that could really backfire. So she is done something that's quite a big mistake.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about the writing for John is he's not just written to be horrible for no reason. It makes sense why he's acting the way he's acting. And it's
Yeah.
almost expected for him to act like this because of what they do and he's in charge of the gang.
Yeah.
So he basically says, right, here's your test. You're going to go back to Slater, I think he's called, and you're going to get the money and you're going to lead it. I'm going to just hang back. And he does. He literally drives there and goes, right, I'm off. You go in and do it.
Yeah.
And sort of to begin with, she's still got that nervousness, hasn't she, with Slater and his gang.
Yeah.
There's a lovely shot where you see a hand sort of really shaking.
Yeah.
And then this is, like I said, the actress, brilliant, sort of everything about her. And then she just turns, doesn't she, on a dime.
Yeah.
And suddenly she's the one who's calling the shots in this negotiation. And she's the one saying, no, you're going to do it like this.
Yeah.
So it's such a good little turn and so much good acting, isn't it? What did you think of that moment when you see her almost shift?
She's got incredible range as an actress, and I've noticed as well that very few. I've noticed as well that there are very few character actors are about right now, and I think she is a perfect example of what a good character actor is supposed to be.
Oh yeah, and she, like I said, they give her a lot to do, and she really meets the mark and goes beyond it. So we like I said, I think this is one of the very sort of to and fro episodes, but it really works that you're jumping a lot. So now, because of Ihan and the sort of the links, they get Binder in.
Yeah.
And if you felt bad for him, you felt so bad watching Binder in this interview because you can tell she's just really like hating herself. She just has this air of she knows she's done something wrong and she doesn't really want to admit to it.
Yeah.
Because they sort of like say, okay, so what's the link? You need to tell us. And she comes out with, he's my cousin. So now we can explain why she let the name sort of not get flagged.
Yeah.
And then she says she wasn't aware that he was
Yeah.
pushing this in, giving any information. So she wasn't protecting him from that. She was just doing it purely out of loyalty and family.
Yeah.
And then something, once again, which I love from the last series, comes back, which is the Jamie and how she got his username, an email off him.
Yeah. Because she basically set up the position is basically passing information helping to try and escalate the AC.
Yeah, and she sort of, and that's another thing is, I remember first watching the last series and thinking, why on earth is she doing this? And we actually get a proper explanation now, which is Hilton was like, I'll clear his record, I'll make it that he won't get into trouble, your cousin. You just have to give me information. So now we understand why she did do that, which might have seemed a bit out of character last series. And another nice, and you can see Hastings, can't you, just getting more and more angry the more she talks and gets stuff done.
Yeah.
But Kate and Steve do stick up for her.
Yeah.
And do say like she's never done anything like this before. Her record's clean. So they're still wanting to bat for her. Whereas you can see with Hastings, it's because she was one of his own team, and that really gets to him.
Yeah.
Like that really just rile him. And he sort of even just says, right, I have to even leave the interview before I say something else. Like that's how much it gets to him that he has to walk off. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it's because he views all of his department as though as though like as though like it all has kids and basically what's happened is injury is totally betrayed that in his eyes.
yeah, and it's like I said, it's that loyalty link, isn't it, that he just really gets to him. And you can see when she comes out the interview, she's in tears. She knows how much she's messed up, and I think that very much explains what her next actions are in this episode.
Yeah.
And that is she first goes to see Rihan, and he's been beat up pretty badly in prison, and we can all guess why. Because he said information they probably didn't want him to. And he very much is like, you've always protected me, you've always looked out for me, I really need your help now. So you've got that, and like I said, you can see how much she reacted to Hastings telling off. So she goes to a public phone with a dial code and like a phrase to say.
And then it's that she's got a bit up odds on 100 to and so like and so like autumn so like autumn after another should be easy kill he had the and as basic kill he had the also once stood out.
Yeah, so it's you can see he's passed on this information, and this is probably how he got into contact, or how other people might get into contact with the gang, with this OCG, which we see working out of a base. We've seen it, so we know we're starting to connect a lot of dots. Oh, and something if you're wondering what I'm doing, folks, I'm going through my notes. I've seen that we haven't talked about, but I think it's important before this, is, and it's been mentioned in the chat, we see Kate has got back with her husband, and
Yeah,
that seems quite sort of happier now, and she's sort of sorting her family issues out.
yeah,
But then what I like with the happiness of Kate, almost you see the contrast with Steve,
yeah.
and that's the painkillers.
I mean, but also he's also kind of set himself up on a eating up as well. However, noticed that because there's as in that same scene, you see him go answering at his phone, and he's actually he set himself up in a eating up now the guy that was sort of or into any arrow that he wanted isn't out resorting to it on I'm eating.
Yeah, and it's like this whole theme of Steve just sort of on the surface, everything looks normal and good. And that's, like you said, the usual cockiness we used to Steve, the sort of quickness. But actually, personally, he's got his back issues. You can see the whole relationship stuff. He's still, because he turned her down, yeah. And I think, honestly, Sudoku, this is just, without saying it, saying that Steve has got a massive confidence crisis almost. He's going through so much personal stuff that he's just nervous now, and he doesn't quite know how to handle himself almost, compared to the old days when he would just smile and happily flirt with any woman he wanted. So I think it's all just to say, basically, that's what I mean. It's this idea of Steve being less almost a bit since the accident, and he's trying to recover still on a lot of levels. And that's why what I mean by the character work in this show, it's so dense, because it's just little bits that you sort of have to just pick up in an episode, and then it'll move on. So, but I was thinking we haven't talked about that, and I was like, lo and behold, because I've gone past it. So back to the burner phone, to the Bindra and the public telephone. She does the code, and she says the odds, like you said, and she gets given a phone. A young boy who goes past with a burner phone.
I reckon he thought it was that he shaped in front of Austin series Ryan, because it's almost identical to him.
Well, I was going to say, for the two returning characters, Ryan has grown up. We actually see him in the OCG. So he's now older, so he's too old to do that job. That's what the kids do. And he's now, and I can remember when you messaged me about that, and you were like, "Is that Ryan?" I was like, "Yeah, it's the same actor. They've not just got an older one in; they've got the exact same fella." Which I think is just, it's good for you to link to the character again. So she does arrange a meeting with Lisa, basically saying, I can give you information if you can guarantee safety for my cousin.
Yeah.
That's the Sudoku. That's Daniel thought it was Ryan. That was the same kid.
Yeah.
And then so we sort of go, and now Hastings, I said there was quite a bit of character stuff with Hastings, and this is the major bit we see of where he is now in life, and he's living in a hotel.
Yeah.
And he sort of also cuts quite a sad figure.
Uh, uh, because also he's hit hard on financial times as well at the moment because the guy at the reception desk says there's an issue with payment in your bank account for like rent and stuff like that. You need to stop in.
Yeah, and so you sort of that old theme of money again with Hastings, which has been an ongoing theme.
Mhm.
And also when he gets into his room, you see divorce papers. So
Yeah.
you know he's going through a divorce as well with his wife that you know he really doesn't want to do.
Yep, and the I actually it's a bit more development in episode um in episode two. I so will return to that when we do the episode two every but yeah but that is brought back up again and
Yeah, so we're back to more the main plot now, I would argue, not character stuff, which is the Slaters, the other gang's sort of base
yeah.
gets raided by the police.
Mm.
And also another thing that's important is Steve's ex is there, so she's sort of handling it's part of her department,
Yeah.
which sort of comes up a little bit later on. But and this is where and this is the real like shocking bit. We're now getting right near the end, sort of the big shock, but we're not quite there yet, which
Yeah.
is Binder gets basically kidnapped because this raid has happened.
Yeah.
And she gets to the OCG, the John's base, and they sort of
Yeah.
put her down. And he's very quick to sort of you can see he's like something's not right here, and he's like right,
Yeah.
give us the burner phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sort of I don't know how you felt. Your sort of heart's in your mouth in this moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Uh, because it's he's so like yes driver and you're like oh god what's happening in here kind of thing and then you realize that there's a chip in on the phone that wasn't originally here and you are thinking oh no but and you're in trouble here some eat heart do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you sort of go like I think Wendy was saying or somebody else in the chat. Like you got this feeling that she's so out of her depth before this,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as the thing gets the chip gets discovered, you just think, oh, this is Line of Duty. Oh, you're really not safe, and you just get that instant sort of feeling. But before we sort of see the proper end of that, you see they actually go back, Steve, Kate, and Hastings to Powell to sort of say, right, we need answers. You can't just sort of brush us off anymore. Too much has happened, and they just list it all, and Hastings is leading this.
Yeah.
And she finally spills as not a lot really when if you watch the rest of the series, but enough that we're starting to get a bit more of an image, which
Yeah.
is Operation Pear Tree, which is what this really sensitive operation she was protecting was called. And it was
Yeah.
having an officer embedded, so not just like how Kate does undercover, which
Mm-hmm.
is she's undercover for some and then she'll come back and report. It's no, if you're embedded, you're there 24/7.
I mean but it's not all to the same intensity as that though.
No, so and I like that as well. That we're so used to seeing undercover through Kate's eyes and how Kate does it, and we're seeing a completely different version and a different level of it. And she sort of, and then you can see her face. She's sort of there's something else she's not saying, and they eventually get out to her that you've lost contact with your officer.
Yeah.
And when they're like, was it days? And she says nothing. Was it weeks? She says nothing. And then Hastings is like, oh, mother of God, it's not months, is it? And her face says it all. And you're just like, oh, love, you've really lost control of this, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I don't know how you felt, but I think that was such a good performance from Adrian.
Yeah, as it's actually his best performance, and he's had a few top year performances, but it's still a very of this scene and a some dialogue that mimics this and out because I think only Adrian could pull us off as scene.
Yeah, it's that sort of indignance. He's just brilliantly the anger and the sort of like, what on earth? Like, why have you let it get to this stage? Is that vibe of? It does feel like that, really, with this woman, Matthew. It really does. And of course, she lets slip, and this is sort of the first big shock, I would say, after this one in a minute. She says he, because throughout the whole episode, and the episode, I would say, writing-wise, has done a very good job of making you think it's Lisa, who's the undercover officer here.
Yeah.
There's been so many like red herrings now you realise to make you think that way, and as soon as she says he, and they go, what?
Yeah.
And then she reveals it's John. Now, how did you feel when you first watched that, when the reveal was that it was John?
I was like, holy fucking shit, because like, because like, that is actually a lot of thinking, oh my god, that's actually, he said it's he said it's undercover because she was a bit sort of she and a bit sort of jumpy, so you know like that can pull he threw me off the scent because John was of a person throughout the majority of that episode.
Yeah, so I said it's a brilliant misdirection. I think, and this series, and this is not me spoiling much, but that theme of misdirection is going to happen a lot. And this first episode, I think, really sets that up well to expect it. So then we've got sort of that shock, and when you've just recovered from sort of, oh God, it's John, we see the sort of the results of Binder's try to help. And this is pretty. This is horrible and shocking, but in like a very Line of Duty type of fashion. This scene.
She's had a for so little like you ever. But it's by the so it's the social worker that was older for L. On and so sorry, and it's also helping me is basically off. So so and you see the 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 bill. I could own into the river. Basically, it's very graphic.
Yeah, and I think also we've had sort of deaths before, but I think what makes this one stand out is because I would argue this is the first real innocent we've seen killed.
Yeah.
It was like when it was Denton and some others, they had done so much when by the time they got killed that you couldn't see them as innocent. You couldn't see them as the good guy anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas with Binder, like I said, it was just she was trying to help and she got herself into just a situation she never should have in the
Yeah.
first place, but she wanted to sort of clear her name a bit and make up for past mistakes. And that's what sort of just makes it just more cruel and sort of shocking.
Yeah.
And that's the end. So that's the sort of big ending point. And I can understand why a lot of people would have gone, right, episode 2, if they were binging it.
Yeah. So, if you wouldn't mind giving your ratings in the chat for this episode, please, and we'll put them up on screen as we get as we get.
Yeah. So Daniel, do you want to go first? Because I think I went first
Yeah.
the last time we did these.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. He thought it was a good, it was a good sort of, yeah, setting things up, and the performances were exceptional, from everybody. So yeah, I shall a fantastic opener, and I'm only surprised the shit out of you by giving it a 9.5.
Wow. Is that the highest you've given a first episode?
I think so, yeah.
I think you've given some 9s before. I'm trying to think if you've given 9.5 for a first episode before.
Yeah, it kind of makes me, what to give a 9.5 myself. But the acting and the direction of the episode by the director, all the shots and everything, and like just basically everything from the shot, you see everything just together. So I'm giving it a 9.5. The only reason that I'm not giving it film actually is it's a bit rare. So I think 9.5 is a fair assessment, but everybody else gives it a 9. So
Yeah.
are you giving it?
Well, I think this is going to be one of those times we're in agreement, because I was thinking, should I give it a 10? But then I thought, no, this is the first episode, and I know what's to come in the other episodes. So I think 9.5 is what I'm going to give it. Like I said, this is such a pacey, such a tension-driven, such a lot going on. And like we say that a lot with Line of Duty, I feel like, but this really, it just whizzes by when you watch this episode. I remember just even like I knew it was going to happen, and that's what really made it stand out to me, that I knew the rough plot lines and I knew what roughly was going to happen, but I still was like almost watching it again, it felt like, and I could just get in, sort of lose myself in the story.
Yeah.
And sort of just, and I remember just looking and going, oh God, it's only got 20 minutes left. Like 30 minutes just went by. And like this, so I think the pacing, the tension, but the character stuff, it doesn't like drop on that front. I really like how they've done this for the last couple of series, but it really feels like this series, they're carrying a lot in a really good way over. Like I said, with the Steve stuff with his back, Hastings with his sort of marital issues and the money issue, and the sort of the Binder stuff as well, like with what she was doing with Hilton, like it all really comes and adds a lot. And that's what I find so impressive, that it's
Yeah.
not just for the sake of it they carry stuff over. They do
Yeah.
it because there's an actual story reason, there's an actual character reason. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, and see that this is actually proof that Ian Charlotte they actually yeah, carry on something which is a rare. It even because me and Charlotte have a lot of passionate debates about all sorts of stuff behind the scenes. So this is a rare that people who forget that people who forgetting something and obviously well, you kind of feel a bit sorry for your boyfriend as well.
he had to get it in,
You
folks.
know?
I was
Yeah.
waiting all stream for him to get that in somewhere, and
Yeah,
he did. So
and
we need a counter, like a ding, every time.
well, I've kind of behaved myself tonight. Well, I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was waiting. I was like, he's been really good. He's not done it yet. And I was like, he's either going to get it in literally the last 5 minutes, or he's not going to do it tonight. Then you proved me right in the last like 5-10 minutes.
oh, come on, for me that's pretty good, because I usually say it about 3 times during the course of the stream, so yeah, and it was kind of a receipt because you kind of got me with the same old, you kind of got me with the same 4 hours ago, so here's your receipt for
I
for
knew
that.
as soon as I did it. I was like, I'm on with Daniel tomorrow. This is going to be fun. But we laugh about it, folks, and we do love each other as like a brother and sister, folks. It's don't worry about we have this, and then we have a laugh, and then we carry on.
Oh,
I
gee.
know, Matthew. Matthew, you'll find a new muse. You find one every series. You find somebody.
I'm surprised he's not attached himself to Isai or
There's
somebody.
time. There is time.
Yeah. So a bit of housekeeping before we before we have channel shoutouts. Yeah, I did enjoy doing the review tonight, but I think I doing I doing need a short break from all of these analysis and review type stream, so we'll kind of you know an episode will be, but just keep an eye out for folks, and they're still into time because it keeps getting renewed and
They're
and
never going to let it go off iCloud. It's way too much of a big proper series for them now. It's going to be like Doctor Who, folks. This is my prediction. It's going to just be there forever.
So yeah, I'll be back soon after the streams. I might put up I put up a bit of or content, and we'll just have to wait and see what kind for him and man, but the reviews will be back the reviews will be back pretty soon, and I'll and I'll actually do another follow up stream and it can series 5 and 6 is it episode on and oh it's a chance to on and the actually I think has 85 or 86 views on it and our Q&A session has 95 views on it, so there has been an uptake an engagement on the channel. So
thank you.
guys, thank you for that, because as I said at the start, because as I said at the start, I doing these reviews and stuff. Wasn't sure that we would get the same level with the worship and stuff.
Yeah, because obviously Line of Duty is very far removed from the usual things people know us for and we talk about on other streams. So
Yeah,
we always appreciate it. And
yeah,
it's always a massive, like, it makes us both feel amazing when we see you guys love these sort of streams.
yeah. Yeah, and it's all down to my fantastic host, as I'm shite on my own and need somebody that I can bounce off of, and you're the perfect hostess. And also as well, also as well, still up for on to the streams, even though I take the as as a young fascination and
it's a
and
fascination now, is it?
yeah, and other
Okay, Daniel, here's a question. How many of your list do you follow on Twitter?
About half a mile.
So I've got the fascination, folks. I've got the fascination.
Right, so channel shout outs before I come down here and trying. Oh, sure. I don't me. By the way, and
Jokes, people. Jokes.
and if anybody takes that serious, so you don't know. You don't know Ian Charles at all. So on you go, Charlotte. Who's whose channel whose channel are you appearing on this week?
Well, last night on Type 40 Live, we did our usual Thursday stream where we talked about a lot of rumours to do with TARDISes and possible returning Doctors and just general fan stuff. It was a really lovely thing to talk about, actually, what we love as fans to do with Doctor Who. And then, God, my brain. And then recently on the TARDIS Zone, we did a watch along of Time of the Doctor. So you can hear me comment and talk about Matt's final episode.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm the biggest fan of series seven, as I've said on a couple of occasions. I've never really went into great detail as to why in the channel. Maybe it's something that I should maybe address a bit further or at some point, because I'm sure that there'll be some people in the chat or some people that follow me that are interested in what I have to say. And it's just never really oh, uh, to if me a series seven, and I know Charlotte's going to kill me. If
No one know,
uh,
even as people who know how much I adore Matt's Doctor, his
mhm,
last series had issues. But
mhm,
and you see on the watch along though, that final episode, it hits all the right notes for me. So
yeah.
that episode has a special place in my heart for multiple
Mhm.
reasons.
Uh, so if you haven't subscribed to the Facebook YouTube channel, it's a fantastic podcast, and they've been very kind to Charlotte on as a recurring sort of panelist and host and stuff. And thanks to and thanks to Judaism, L from the Facebook type for history, because he's been a good pal to the both of us, and we were getting all that wrapped towards the back end of last year. He was on another for us to check in with us and chat. Yeah, so we both kind of know OG really well, and if
And
J.
also Dan Hadley, because
Mhm,
I think the whole of Type 40 and are lovely, but those two, just on a more personal level, we've chatted quite a lot with the both of them. And Dan is also he's always been the first to ask, like, how am I, if he knows anything's gone on with me, or even with Daniel. If he can't contact Daniel, he'll sort of ask me about stuff to check in with Daniel. So Dan Hadley also and JT, but they're the most two of the most genuine blokes you'll come across in the fandom.
So if you two guys ever want to come on and do a follow up who stream or whatever you like, we'd actually like to have you guys back on at some point. Because it'd be a fun stream, and that goes to anybody else's so long as you're a genuine human being and or a psych or a psychopath, and the actual and the actual he has a sense of humor, and actually he wants to contribute to the conversation. You're more than welcome to come on and have a chat with either myself or Charlotte. But if you're just it's going to be a prick, then there's no point. Basically, and well, I can thank you to everybody in the chat. But as well, thank you to our us, and thank you to the one and all the J's elk is a each are part in on the series on the four panel stream. So you guys you do your part on that stream as well. So all of that success is because of you guys as well.
Yeah, so like I said, well, you'll see both of us soon. We're just taking a little break. And like I said, Daniel might do some of his own little pop-up individual videos to still watch them because they're still very enjoyable. And Daniel's still very funny in those when he's talking about whatever, and that's the fun of those videos. They're whatever Daniel fancies, sort of
Yeah.
on the day. So look out for those, and hopefully you all have a good time until we see you again.
And yes, he safe hit the bell notification button, subscribe to the channel, and smash the shit out the like and share button also, because it really helps a lot, and it really helps a lot, and share it and share it Russia platforms as well. Guys, it helps out because YouTube aren't really YouTube aren't really much help, if I'm honest. So any sharing is great. Yeah, appreciated. And again, thanks for the support. And here is the best trail. And here is the best trailer on YouTube. Eight folks.
Night night.